Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another deck profile. Today, I'm sharing my Dark Broly list with you guys. I did a video earlier this week where I helped a patron learn Dark Broly, so I got a few questions about my list, so that's, here for you guys today. This is also the deck I would have taken to my store championships. Just keep in mind that my store championship wasn't going to be doing like a set 10, 11 only deck list. You could play whatever you wanted to. They were just, going with that rule. But yeah, I couldn't make it to that because I had a family thing, and guys, sometimes you got to pick the family thing over DBS. But anyways, I wanted to share my list with you guys, show you what I was going to play. I like Dark Broly a lot. It's super fun. A lot of decks this format, they're pretty linear, just to put it bluntly. A lot of decks like Gotenks, like Red Gogeta, things like that, they just do the thing, right? They just do the thing over and over and over again. Dark Broly kind of does that by just spamming the different Dark Brolys, but you actually have to think a lot in this deck. Like I've said it several times in meta breakdowns that this deck really rewards players who know what they're doing, who have a lot of practice with it. It's just one of those types of decks that you need to sequence incredibly well if you want to see a good amount of success with this deck. So the leader, pretty self-explanatory. On this side, you look at the top 5, you put 3 30Ks in the drop area. You can take a life if you want to. I never really use that effect unless I'm up against a heavy control deck. So even against like mid-range that's gonna attack me like once to twice per turn, I'm probably not going to take the life unless it's going to get me that awaken. And you always save your awaken for your turn if you can help it, because you want to attack and then flip, since the backside is an activate main to draw, so you get that basically double draw on your awaken turn, which is really key there. And on this side, he takes 3 30Ks from your ward, puts them back in the drop, draws a card, and then you can activate battle, use any of your 30K battle cards in your hand or battle area, so that includes your rest mode cards, and use them as a 5K combo. So when you're on this side, you're pretty much defenseless in terms of having a bunch of 0 cost combo cards in your hand, but once you get to your backside, you turn them all into 5K combo, which is really good. So let's just get into the main deck. We know the leader pretty much. So for Dark Broly's, nothing special here. We're playing for Ravager. You're getting this guy out on turn 1 as often as you can. We're going to talk about how you can get into a Dark Broly on turn 1 as we get into the profile. But this is always your turn 1 Broly. Actually, there's a funny thing. I was testing against Bulma earlier this week, and I would take a life with my leaders on Awaken side, and he would play Bardock the Resolute. And that was like the only time I ever wanted to go into a turn 1 uncontrollable Berserker. There are going to be really random times where your opponent puts a 1-drop out turn 1. Like maybe it's like a 1-drop Broly for swap, but they're not really going to do that too often if they know you have this guy. There are sometimes you go to this turn 1, but mostly it's Ravager turn 1 just to get the card out of their hand. But both of these are pretty solid on turn 1. Of course, we're playing 4 of both of them. And then guys, we're playing 4 of the blocker one. It's not particularly amazing. I mean, it is another Dark Broly you can play, because believe it or not, sometimes you can actually play all 3 Dark Brolys in one turn, depending on how your turn goes and what your setup kind of looks like. But yeah, this guy's not particularly amazing. He doesn't have a great effect like Ravager or Uncontrollable Berserker, but he's actually okay against aggro decks, like against Reboot Gohan, against like other AOD types of decks. Against anything aggressive, you're gonna want to put this guy out turn 1 for that block. Getting that block is more important than like ripping a card out of their hand. Sometimes you can go into Uncontrollable Berserker if they have like a turn 1 aggressive battle card that you want to get rid of. But yeah, just a free body you can play. Not the worst, not the best. This is a 52 card list, by the way, so just letting that be known. Moving along, we're playing our 4 Broly Savage Rush. You're always mulliganing for this turn 1 in tandem with your red Dragon Ball. So these are the 2 cards you mostly want on turn 1. There are Surgers for this, which we'll talk about in a second, but if you can manage to open both these cards turn 1, you're putting out a huge 30K beat stick on the field turn 1, and if you're getting out Ravager or Uncontrollable Berserker, you're getting a really impactful effect turn 1. Like turn 1, rip a card from their hand and put a 30K body on the board for pressure is really good. And then again, in the random scenarios where like you want to play Uncontrollable Berserker to warp a battle card, this is always really good. But if you can't get exactly this, if you can only get, let's just say, the 1-drop Broly in your opening hand, right? If you mulligan and you just don't find a ball, there are some other acceptable things you can get in your opener. One of those is going to be Toa, Union of Magic and Science. So she does act as another copy of Ball, but the problem is she costs an energy. So, you can only play one of these things on turn 1, right? Sometimes you'll play her turn 1 to search the ball, then turn 2 you'll play the Broly, use the ball that you searched, and if this thing is still alive, you can mana sink that second energy to get the ball back from the drop area, which is a very efficient play to do. A lot of times too, I'll use her mana sink to pull the Dragon Balls out of the drop area before I'm about to overwhelm, because you never want to use up all your balls, have them all in the drop area, and not be able to use them for the rest of the game if you like warp them away, right? Because you can get most things from the warp back into the drop in this deck, but you can't really get the Dragon Balls back that way. But anyways, definitely another card you want to get in your opening hand if you cannot get the Dragon Ball or the 1-drop Broly. And then next up, guys, for a kind of like a tech card, but honestly this card is perfect in this main deck. We're playing 3 Makobibora. So like I mentioned before, a lot of decks in this format being pretty linear. This card hits a ton of them. Green Gotenks, red Gogeta, Invoker, Sin Shenron. There are so many decks that just rely on very specific battle cards to do things, and Makobibora calling those battle cards is very, very backbreaking. I talked about this card in a video earlier this week about side deck cards that you should play this format. And this card is particularly amazing in this deck, not only because it can search your parasitic Dragon Ball, but also because you can follow up pressure on this thing on turn 2, even though this is your entire turn 2 play, right? Like you pay 2 for this, you're tapped out, but you can still follow up with some free Dark Broly, some free Overwhelms for additional pressure. Plus, he's a 15k, so he pressures himself. This is definitely an aggro deck, by the way, guys. Some people try to play Dark Broly a little bit more mid-rangey. I really think Dark Broly is at its best when it's just being super fast and attacking a lot. That's where I found the most success with it. But anyways, this card, amazing in the main deck. If you're spending 2 energy on something, it's going to be this or another card we'll talk about in the deck in just a few. All right, next up we have 4 copies of Toa Dark Illuge. A lot of people don't play 4 copies of this card, and I think 3 is probably okay, but this card for me is such a playmaker. Like, sometimes you need to pop your battle cards, you need to pop your Dark Brolys so that you can replay them. Sometimes you're going to mill a card that you need to see in a certain matchup. Like, there are some overwhelms in this deck that are very, very matchup specific. And this card, even on turn 1, if you mill that card turn 1 and play this turn 1, because she can KO herself, keep that in mind. She can KO herself or any other of your 30k battle cards to pick up a 30k from the drop area. She's just absolutely incredible. I like her at 4 copies, and you have to play a certain amount of 30ks in this deck. So some people could say, yeah, sure, play 3 copies of this, that's probably fine, but you really want the 30k count in the deck to be probably around 35 30ks just to make sure your leader effect is most consistent. So 4 of her has been fine. There's never a game I don't want to see her. She's incredible. All right, next up, for a little bit of a weird thing here, this is for Paragus. I don't want to play this card. I want to play 4 of the new Demigra from Draft Box 6. I'll bring it on the screen for you guys now so you can see it. This was the card I was playing before that Demigra came out, pre-Draft Box 6. I just don't have those Demigras yet, so I'm going to be straight up swapping 4 of this for 4 Demigra. If I was able to go to my store championship, I would have been able to borrow them, which would have been really nice. But yeah, this is okay. In my opinion, Demigra is just an infinitely better card. Some people don't like Demigra because it's not going to be able to stick around too long, because Max Power Kamehameha is a really strong card. But this card has some very, very niche use. I haven't really casted it a whole lot. There's sometimes I did for the crit and like slower matchups. It's cool, but if you can, guys, straight up swap 4 Demigra for this. Otherwise, this card's still playable. And then we have 3 copies of SS4 Bardock Combat Instincts. This card is a really good game ender. So he has a dual attack. When you play him, you get to choose 2 cards in your opponent's hand, send them to the warp. So basically, if you get to like that turn 3, turn 4, which you generally want to win in this deck on turn 3, but you can still win extended games thanks to cards like this, and thanks to cards like the Draft Box 6 Demigra that help you just whittle away your opponent's resources. In a lot of cases, you pay 3 for this. It's going to outright win you the game. Like, even against green, where they have Charismatic Villain, sure, they can pop this, but like, you still got 2 cards out of their hand and their counterplay out of the way. That's definitely pretty worth it. The only thing this is like kind of mediocre against is blue, because they have Godsling Trunks. But if they use the -5 on the baby unison, or if you're able to knock the markers down, which in this deck, granted, you're not focusing on the unison too much, because again, you just want to go all face, go super aggro. But against other matchups like black, like red, this card is absolutely incredible just for the hand rip and the double big attack. Now, guys, this is a bit of a pricier one. Luckily, it's kind of settled in price. We have 4 Mass Sand Brainwashed No More. This guy is an insane playmaker in this deck. So the Overwhelm is way more important than the Activate Battle. The Activate Battle actually does not really come up all that much. So with the Overwhelm here, you play him, and then you get to put 3 battle cards from your warp back into your drop. So the turn you awaken, right? Let's say you use Activate Man on this side, and you know, that puts you at 6 in drop. You flip over, whatever. You Overwhelm this guy. You put 3 back into your drop, then you use the Activate Main of your leader to put 3 more back into your drop. That's 6. You attack with this guy, you attack with your leader, use your leader to sacrifice this guy while he's in rest mode. That gives you 7 in drop to then play a Dark Broly. So you just got like crazy value out of this card. It's such an amazing aggro extender. Overwhelming for free is incredible. This deck is insane with this card. You do need 4 of it. I think it's settled around 20 bucks a copy, so that's pretty nice. But yeah, the card is just way too good in the deck in my opinion. Next up for some finishers, we have 2 Mirror Assault from this guys. I don't play Champa in this deck. This is kind of like a surgible Champa, which is really good. And in those scenarios where you just whittle your opponent's resources down so low, they either have to counterplay or negate this, and a lot of times they just can't because they've just been dealing with your barrage of attacks elsewhere. So this card, in my opinion, incredible game ender. I prefer this over Champa. Plus, it also makes your leader more consistent on the unawakened side. We do play 1 Fu Shrouded Mystery. Honestly, in all my time playing this deck since the beginning of set 11, I haven't casted this card. I just still play the 1 because, you know, you never know. And the worst case scenario in this deck, it's actually a 5k combo once you get to your awakened side. So there's almost like no downside to playing this card. It's oftentimes energy, it's oftentimes comboed away, but it's still a card I don't want to cut because it just synergizes well with the deck. Then for super combos for Vegeta, nothing special there. And then we have for our negates, we have no power burst. We're actually playing 3 Protector of the People. Power burst in this deck is cool. There are a lot of good 1-drops you can grab with it, but you just don't need it. I mean, this is just the better negate in most scenarios. Like, I would be main decking max power Kamehameha. I still wouldn't be main decking power burst, but I would main deck max power over this if it wasn't for the fact that your removal in this deck with the uncontrollable berserker is just so easily searched out. You just don't need it. So this in the main deck just to deal with like your opponent's aggro decks like Red Broly and AOD and different things like that. It's just really good. Now I'll go over a few cards I was going to side deck. Again, I ended up not going to this tournament, so I didn't fully complete the side deck, but these are cards I would 110% definitely side deck. So the 3 max power, when you're up against your Red Gogeta, when you're up against your Red Broly, your Green Gotenks, your Sen Shenron, there's just so many matchups where this card's really good. So in those cases, the Protector can come out and the max power can go in, or if you're up against like Reboot Gohan, you can just bring in the max power just as extra negates because sometimes you will need that. 3 copies of Haru Haru. This is even just win more against yellow and green. I mean, I say win more, and usually people don't play win more cards, but there are just some cards that are bad in certain matchups. Like if you're going first, you can probably just side out your negates altogether and put these in. If you're up against Sen Shenron, you pretty much don't need negates, so this goes in for that. It's just a card that you should play in those different scenarios. And for the last card, I was definitely going to side deck, which put us at 9. 3 Super Kamehameha. This is for floodgate type of cards like Sun Gohan Baby's Minion, like Topo Righteous Aid, things like that. So that's 9 of the cards I was definitely going to sideboard. I would have had to figure out 6 more side deck cards. Some suggestions, possibly Dark Power Black Mass Saiyan for the Red Broly matchup, because that can be a little bit rough depending on who goes first and who kind of opens better. And besides that, maybe side deck Power Burst for like a Reboot Gohan matchup, but yeah, I don't know. The 9 cards I showed you are definitely super solid. There's a few flexible spots there. But anyways, guys, I want in the comments below what you think about this deck profile. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.